The chikungunya virus is spreading in China, and we're seeing eerily similar videos to what we saw in 2020, them spraying the streets, hospitals filling up, and there's fears of a new pandemic. But what is even more fearful is the response by the Chinese government. We'll look into that because it's something we need to pay attention to as more governments around the world think that they can tyrannically impose what they believe is right due to different things like the virus. We'll also look at what's happening in Nova Scotia with their government implementing a new type of lockdown, one that I've warned about, many others as well, one connected to the climate where people can't even go outside. Even if you live in the woods, they're suggesting that you don't go and spend time outside in the woods because of fire threats. So let's get into all this. First, we'll watch this short video here, hearing a little bit about what is going on with this new virus in China. This is from the New York Post.
The videos coming out of China and spreading across social media are eerily familiar, reminiscent from the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. So what is happening? And do you need to worry? China is experiencing an outbreak of chikungunya, a painful mosquito-borne virus. It has rapidly spread to about 8,000 patients in just 4 weeks, mainly across China's Guangdong province to the south, with the city of Foshan hit the hardest, according to the New York Times. On Monday, Hong Kong reported its first case. Infected residents are being sent to quarantine wards in hospitals, where they're placed in beds covered by mosquito nets, where they have to remain for a week or until they test negative. In a massive effort to curb its further spread, masked Chinese soldiers have been dousing public spaces with insecticide. Authorities have begun releasing elephant mosquitoes, whose larvae devour the smaller virus-carrying mosquitoes, and releasing mosquito-eating fish into Foshan's public ponds. Residents have been ordered to remove stagnant water where the mosquitoes breed from their homes and threatened with fines up to $1,400 if they refuse to comply, according to the BBC.
So we're seeing a few scary things within that. We're seeing now governments, China here, but it's been done in the US as well, releasing other mosquitoes that they think will combat this. And we've seen that again in the US over a festival not too long ago. They were just dumping mosquitoes out of a helicopter. And as we know, with Bill Gates' work and other people like him, they have been doing what they can to inject these mosquitoes and even in plants and things like this to carry different viruses and then releasing that into the public as well. Just that they're genetically modifying these things. We don't know what they're doing or what kind of negative impact that could have on society and on the world as well, on nature, which they so much care about, as we'll see in just a little bit, as they say. But this is much scarier than that. I don't think that the chikungunya virus will turn out to be anything like what happened in 2020, but the response of the Chinese government, something other governments around the world are starting to join on the bandwagon with, of just absolute tyrannical enforcement because they believe something is right. It's very clear now to see a picture of a world where what the Bible warned us about of Christians being beheaded just for believing in the gospel of Jesus Christ. Very easy to picture that when we see such things like what is coming out of China right now.
But China being China hasn't stopped here. It is also infringing on people's rights. Authorities have boosted surveillance. People's daily lives are being monitored. Pharmacies have been told to report the sale of certain drugs, like the ones used to treat fever. Authorities have threatened to fine people who don't comply with their rules. Residents are being penalized by having their electricity cut off. Plus, officials are also barging into people's homes to conduct inspections. This harks back to the pandemic, when China had the strictest measures in the world. Their aim was to curb the disease, but their execution was borderline torture for the people. Now, the chikungunya outbreak is seeing something similar, and it has divided experts.
In reality, what has to happen?
And then here's an expert, probably in China, and every time, just like when they interview the people in the streets talking about the social credit score system, they say, oh, it's a good thing. These people need to be named and shamed. They have to say that. Otherwise, they will get their social credit score deducted, or a guy like this would lose his job. Or just like they just mentioned, people going to pharmacies or not reporting that they're sick are having their electricity cut off. Again, it's very easy to see the type of evil control systems in the world that the Bible warned us about when we see similar things like that, and like this, again, coming out of China.
A single mother living in Zhangjiang, a port city in China's Guangdong province, was working the night shift. She was not at home. That's when a uniformed police officer entered her home in the middle of the night, went to her children's bedroom, and took blood samples from the girl and the boy without their mother's consent. Why? Because the son had a fever. This is one of the many alarming cases popping up across China these days.
So that's just how things are happening now. So in China, you could have police coming into your house, taking blood samples of your children without you even there, just because they had a fever. Again, does that give any type of possibility come to mind how the governments of the world will enforce a mark on people's hands or their heads where they can't buy or sell the mark of the beast? Pretty clear to see how those types of things could happen in the world when we have people rushing into people's houses and taking blood samples of children without parents' consent. We saw similar things in Australia in 2020. Terrible footage of people trying to run away on roofs, children crying, parents crying in cafeterias, and nurses holding them down, giving them forced shots. I mean, we're seeing a glimpse into the future of what's going to come. So stay strong until the end, because nothing is worth losing your salvation over. And again, this isn't the mark of the beast, obviously, but it's very clear, in my opinion, at least, to see how that type of thing could happen now when they're literally doing that exact same thing, but in connections with other viruses. Or now we're seeing just that type of complete control that violates humans' rights in Nova Scotia, connected to the climate. Climate stuff is complete joke. We're probably having some sort of impact on it, but not to the degree that they're saying. This is obvious. We'll look at some of that, but here's the new news. This just came out 2 days ago. Nova Scotia temporarily banning hiking, fishing, and using any type of motor vehicles in the woods because of wildfire risk. And you could be fined up to $25,000 for going hiking in the woods. I mean, that is insane.
Effective 4 p.m. today, we're telling Nova Scotians, stay out of the woods. We are restricting travel and activities that really aren't necessary for most of us. Hiking, camping, fishing, and the use of vehicles in the woods are not permitted. Trail systems through woods are off limits. Camping is allowed, but only in official campgrounds. The fine.
Just got to say real quick there, because this sounds very similar to what Agenda 21 was trying to put forth. I'll put the map on the screen in case you haven't seen it. This is the Agenda 21 map, where we see at least the United States here with all the areas in red, and I believe in yellow, if I can remember off the top of my head, are the areas, for sure the red, where human activity is not allowed. It's practically the entire United States. And the only areas where free public access are available is, like, you can't even notice it on the map. It's in the color green. This is what they're going to try to move forward with. They're going to use the climate. This is why they've been shoving it down people's throats for so many years now, because they know that they can implement absolute force and power, which is the sin of pride, which we know has gone on since the beginning of time, why Satan was cast out of heaven. And that's exactly what these people have. And they're going to try to use the climate because so many people buy into that lie, the climate change, the climate chaos that they predict. That's why they're going to use the climate, and that's exactly what they're doing now. And again, this is very similar to what they said, where you can't even just go enjoy the outdoors, not have fires or light fireworks or stuff like that, not even go out into the woods.
For violating any of these bans is the same as the fine for the ban on burning, $25,000. And if you're a smoker, for God's sakes, be mindful of where you're butting your butt out. If you don't, and you cause a fire, we will hold you accountable. So what does this mean if you have a home or cottage surrounded by a wooded area? We strongly encourage you to stay out of those woods, regardless of where they are.
So you can't even now enjoy the woods that your taxes pay for them to maintain the roads and all that type of stuff, and park rangers and all that. Now you can't even go there in Canada. Canada is like the test ground for the West of just absolute insanity, where you see complete wokeness and then complete Islamic integration into society and the decline of Christian values. It's just insane. And obviously tyrannical forces, they pushed forth tyrannical rules in 2020. And now this with, you can't even go enjoy the outdoors. That's absolutely crazy. 25,000 fine. And if you even own the woods around your house, well, then we just suggest that you don't go and enjoy, the thing that you own. Absolutely crazy. You'll own nothing and be happy. That is absolutely their plan and their desire. I just wanted to bring this up because the climate change stuff, again, we're probably having some sort of impact to a small degree, but when you see the spikes in it throughout history, it's nothing compared to what the Earth just naturally goes through. The Earth naturally goes through cycles, so does the sun. So to think that we're having some massive impact on the climate is absolutely ridiculous, really, when you look at the history. I mean, these same people believe in the whole millions and hundreds of millions of Earth theory of how the age of the Earth, billions of years old. You can see hundreds of millions of years ago that the Earth was even hotter and spiking up for no reason, no human activity. We'll look at that in just a minute, but I wanted to remind people of this. This was May 15th, 2014, 500 days to climate chaos is what the French foreign minister said with this interview with, can't remember his name, John Kerry. 500 days to climate chaos. That was in 2014. Obviously another lie that did not come to pass. Here we have from June the 4th, 2022, this protester chaining herself to a tennis racket or something. We have 1,028 days left because of climate. Obviously, complete joke. What's this? Oh yeah, Greta Thunberg, 2018. A top climate scientist is warning that climate change will wipe out all of humanity unless we stop using fossil fuels over the next 5 years. Once again, a complete joke. And these are things that they've been saying through the years. In the 60s, they were saying the oil will be gone. There was the gas shortage, the oil shortage. Well, here we are. Everything's fine. They found more oil. There's actually evidence that the oil fields are actually filling up again. Again, that doesn't even make sense to me. Does it make sense to you that there's just huge pits where, I guess, a bunch of dinosaurs died and that's why there's oil? The oil seems more like it's a natural resource that just grows in the earth. Not there's just like big pits where a bunch of animals died millions of years ago. It doesn't really add up to me. 1970s, they were pushing another ice age in 10 years. They were pushing that hard, talking that in the media. They were saying the climate is changing, but there's going to be a new ice age. Prepare for the new ice age. They were pushing that. Time magazine, multiple mainstream news sources all the time. That was the climate change they were using then. Then they realized it's much bigger deal, and it's a lot more kind of obvious when things aren't freezing over all the time. So they say, well, things are just getting hot. That's what they say now. That's the lie they push. 1980s acid rain will destroy all crops in 10 years. The ozone layer will be gone in 10 years. In the 1990s, 2000s, ice caps will be gone in 10 years. Al Gore was saying that hasn't happened. In fact, they're growing in Antarctica, did last year. More control, more taxes. That is what happens and what their solution is. More control, more taxes. These guys, you think this guy's not going in the woods or enjoying the woods around his house? Definitely not. Just like Gavin Newsom going out to eat during 2020 with all his buddies. No one's wearing a mask. Same with all the politicians putting a mask on in 2020 when they're saying that we all should be doing it and they're not doing it. Obviously, this is the control pattern that they're trying to use. The climate is just another thing that they're going to try to do as well. Here's some more info on just the history of climate change, I guess.
You find the Washington Post climate study. They found that we're in a massive cooling period. If you go back, X amount of 100,000 years, and you look at like what's happening to, it goes in cycles, but that's what it looks like now.
Right.
Captures Earth's climate over the last 485 million years. Look at the dip we're in, and look how it's never static. It's down and up and down and up and down and up all throughout the history of the Earth, which is measurable. And it's not to say that we don't have an impact on it. We definitely
that's
do.
Pretty sharp increase there, but yeah.
But here's the thing: even if we didn't, but there's sharp increases in the
couple
past.
other ones.
Look at those back. Look at 390 million years ago. Look at that giant peak.
So yeah, I mean, you can see here on this map that throughout different times in history, way before human beings, according to these people who believe in the evolution, the millions of that we came from apes theory, also no evidence. You can see the spikes up and down when there weren't even people on the earth. And the impact that we're having obviously is not that big of an impact if the spikes are not that big and there's really not that much noticeable evidence. And then they complain about the ice caps melting and this. And then again, last summer, Antarctica ice was growing. We have to be very careful when we trust the people really in the government. We are supposed to honor authority as Christians. That is what God has told us to do. But we have to be very careful when we're in the times that we're in, and even all throughout history, that there are also wicked leaders. Israel had a lot of history of wicked leaders in the past as well, and we saw the detriment that they caused. You're not supposed to follow wickedness, and you're not supposed to believe lies just because they're in the government. And these people are continuously caught lying and forcing stuff upon people in evil ways. It's wrong and it's evil to force your way into someone's apartment and take blood samples from a child, or to force people to take injections, or to force people to not use the woods. This is evil. This is tyrannical. And these are the types of things we should definitely not support in any way. Stand up for freedom, stand up for truth, because, we want things to be good and free for all people everywhere. And these people need to know, in the governments, that they do not have the right to take our basic freedoms away.